starting in verse 20, and how God wants to shape the church in this day, no matter what the world is doing. And churches are shaped by the world all the time. We get power, and we get everyone to sign up for this, and get people on our side, and make all this happen. That's how the world does things. Stories and the things that happened to Jesus, because they're so like us, and they're actually very entertaining, and this is true of this story. So the first myth is this: it's better to look good than be good. It's better, whatever you're doing, that it look good if you can't or you don't want to be good. And so our story starts off when the mother of the Zebedee's sons, and I just want you to remember that their nickname, the Zebedee's sons, I love their nickname in the Bible, Sons of Thunder. You know, I can see them in, cut off leather jackets and on the back, Sons of Thunder, as they go blowing through Hollister or someplace like that, okay? So I'm thinking that's these guys, okay? And so these are big kind of burly guys. They're used to making a lot of noise. And just hang on to the thunder piece, because that's going to make a difference in the story towards the end. And here's the twist in the story. Came to Jesus, then the mother of these two guys came to Jesus, kneeling down, and asked him a favor. First thing we have here is the boys aren't asking for the favor, the mother is. Okay? So that's already got us kind of like off to the races. This is that's interesting. Haven't you ever thought of, if I ask for this favor, that might look bad. I'll get someone else to ask for this for me. Have you ever thought that way? Has that ever entered your mind? Don't all raise your hands at once, okay? And what's happening in there is this, I just don't want to get caught looking like I have poor motive. When in fact, I probably do. Because that's what it looked like. No, because God's on my side, right? That's very, very dangerous territory. What's going on here? It's the concealing the appearance of selfishness. In fact, if you were to talk to church leaders, they would tell you that, I'm really pretty comfortable with politics in the church. And talking to people, church today would say, that's the only way it gets done. It just isn't Jesus' way. Wow. In fact, if you go to several of the places in the New Testament, and this is just a fun thing for you to do, although it can really convict you, and find those really lists of bad sins, the real bad ones, right? Always in that list is the sin gossip. Gossip is talking to the wrong people about the right situation. That eradicated gossip, because that's the mainstream of getting things done in the church if you're not dealing with the right people. I mean, the church, you can take those lists of sins and you can see where we've tried to, make those sins illegal in the world and petition. I have never seen the church start a petition organization to stomp out gossip, because it's so used, it's so ingrained, it's become a part of what goes on there. The myth of looking good when we know that what we're doing may not be just right. In our minds, it's something we're doing for God, right? Myth number 2. He who has the gold rules. It's kind of like the golden rule. It's the real golden rule. Whoever has the gold can make things. If people would just give me the position, then I could do that. Grant that these two sons of mine may sit at your right and the other at your left in the kingdom. Pretty clear cut. I mean, I love this lady. She knows what she wants for her sons. But can you imagine? The answer is actually quite profound. He goes, you don't know what you're asking. And then Jesus looks at the two men and says, can you drink the cup I am going to drink? Can you be sacrificed for God? Oh, sure. Yes, of course. Right? Jesus already knows the martyrdom that those two are going to go through. He's speaking truth to their quest for power and position. Then he says, you will indeed drink the cup. I've seen the end of the movie. But to sit, now listen to this, check this out. But to sit at the right or the left hand is not for me to grant. You know what is a really interesting Bible study? Look at all the things in the New Testament that Jesus doesn't know. And it isn't his to grant. It's like, oh, yeah, I got out of heaven in a hurry and I didn't get the last part of the manual. I don't have the answers to those things. What happens to one of us when we're caught without the answer? We fake it. Right? We don't want to look like we don't have the answer. Jesus is so secure with himself that to appear to not have the answers, to be the Son of God and say, hey, that's not my job. He's okay with that. What's going on here? The sons of Zebedee are trying to substitute authority for selfishness. They feel that if they had the position, they would have the authority. If someone would just give them the job, they would be okay. It's kind of like the person who doesn't understand team sports. Put me in, coach, now! You need me! Which is really the appeal, I need to be on the playing field. Does anyone sitting the bench know better than the coach? Probably not, or they would be the coach. Wouldn't you rather be a coach in the NBA instead of running up and down the thing as a player, getting all sweaty and stuff and a heart attack? Show up, to work in a suit and tell everyone what to do. And here is this, put me in. I don't care if we win or lose. I want my turn. Substitutes authority for selfishness. Interestingly enough, another observation from the church, authority is often granted to those who don't seek it because they seem to be kind of unaware that this is all about getting my needs met and finding that place where, really? You need me to serve? Oh, okay. That's the best kind. Myth number 3. Do unto others before they do unto you. Yeah, that's out there too. And that's where the story gets really fun. Check this out, verse 24. When the 10 heard about this, they were indignant with the 2 brothers. Now the thing about the thing about thunder and lightning, by the time you hear the thunder, the lightning's already happened. That's why the sons of thunder already struck. They asked before anyone else could ask for the 2 best seats in the house. You can imagine the argument that's 2016 years old on a dusty road. Hey, wait a minute! You can't do that! And why? Because they beat them for asking for the same thing. What's going on here? Divine selfishness is being used against selfishness. Oh, no. I know I'm being a little bit selfish here in outing these guys, but they need to be outed so I can have their seat. Wow. Check that out. That somehow this indignation needs to be pointed to the top of myth number 1. It's better to look good than be good. But see, somehow for us and in our endeavors, we're right. Even if we use means that can only be justified by the ends. Jesus is saying that's really not the way it works. That's not the way this goes. And the point that Jesus makes, it becomes clear to us in verses 25 and 26. Jesus called them together. Now, fellas, by now they're pulling each other's hair. They're throwing dust in the air. Someone's throwing their sandal at the other guy. It's a mess. And these are the disciples of Jesus on the road. They're just having a big hissy. It's going crazy. Jesus says, He called them together. You know that the rulers and the Gentiles lord over them, and the high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. He says, you know, you guys are looking a lot like the Gentiles and the Roman rulers out there on the road, throwing all that dirt in the air and creating that mess. You're looking really silly out there. That's not the way it works. Probably one of the most difficult indecencies for the Christian church today, and we fumble this ball a lot, is to be accused of doing the wrong thing or the right thing the wrong way by people who don't care about the right thing or the right way, and would just lob a grenade into anything that you're doing just to do it. And we think we've got to fight fire with fire. Well, if they're going to do that, then we're going to. And Jesus says, no, we're not. He goes, I mean, I've seen the end of the movie, and your powerful churches and all their parking lots and all their money and all their success, they will do that. But that won't be my church. That will be the church that you built. That will be the church that is influenced and infused with the ways of the world and just can't get honest enough to sit down toe to toe and pray for each other. When was the last time you wanted to pray with someone in the church that you had a difficulty with? Not to get them on your side or to straighten them out, but just to pray with them and be with them. In fact, if we did more of that before we got it off edges with others, we would probably be a lot more okayer. Right? Thanks for putting up with my stuff. 3 truths. The scripture ends powerfully with this statement from Jesus. Instead, in other words, or check this out, Jesus says, whoever wants to be great, all the ears in the room, like my Jack Russell Terrier, whoop. You know, what, Master? Right? If you want to be great, be their servant. Oh, well, oh, really? If you want to be first, ears go up. Be their slave. You can't, no, not in the real world. We got to get some things done before lunch today. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. Wow. Here's the 3 truths. When we serve, we are great. Okay? When you serve, you become great. But not great like some big guy on a stage someplace. You become grateful. Your heart expands. You become generous. You become open. Check this out. 2 more observations. You can tell I'm getting old. I have a lot of observations for you. Those who practice the art of getting their way complain a lot, they blame others, and their life is full of obstacles. You notice that? Check that out about people. They're practicing the art of getting their way. And there's lots of complaining, blaming, and life full of obstacles. And the more that life gets that way, you know, like that kind of Chinese handcuffs, the more you pull on it, the harder it holds your fingers. And they just squirm in life, trying to do this for God. Just can't get it. However, those who practice the art of giving way are full of blessing, abundance, opportunity, and it's all right here. Jesus says, instead, whoever wants to be great among you, be the servant. Just be the servant. Just love them. Back up 2 steps. Take a big breath. Ooh, yeah. Wow. Truth number 2, when you serve, you become first. And I don't mean first in line. You become the first person most likely in the room to find your spiritual destiny. I don't know if you got tomorrow off, but if you do, I got a great exercise for you. Take your Bible, turn to Genesis 1 and read to Genesis 3 and find out what you were made for. You know what you were made for? Cut to the chase. I've seen the end of this movie. You were made to be a servant. What is it about the Christian community that can't serve? They can only be leaders. They can't share ideas. It's only their idea. And everywhere you go, the water is too... Oh, I want to say that. The water is too hot and the coffee's too cold. That's what I want to say. The water's always too hot and the coffee's too cold no matter what restaurant you go to. Because we don't know that our spiritual identity is to get up all that stuff and learn to breathe in the room of others and love them and care for them. Serving is our identity. It's not something we do because we're superior to everyone else. It's our true identity. And truth number 3, when you serve, you become like, guess who? Jesus. Well, that's also our identity. You can go to a number of places in the New Testament, and who are we supposed to be like? We're supposed to be like Jesus. But so often, the characterization of our stewardship or our servanthood doesn't make us look like Jesus at all. It makes us look like know-it-alls that want to tell everyone else what to do. And we don't, there's not a person in the room that wants to do that from a bad motive. I get that. But that's back to myth number 1. It's better to look good than be good. We've got to go all the way back there and shift that motive. It's not good enough to have the intention to do good and do bad to do good. That's what this discussion that Jesus has with the sons of Zebedee and the rest of the disciples is all about. You see, the world serves people like a commodity. They're used. Jesus actually really cares about people. And if we're going to serve and if we're going to do ministry, we've got to, the front end of this has to be our caring, not our ideas, not our positions, not our authority, not our opinion, not our appearance. It's got to be all about, wow, this looks a lot like Jesus. So the application, the key to servanthood is found in a verse that's very similar. I'm going to read it here in a minute, but I just give you the fill in the blank. The willingness to be last at least. That's the way out. People ask, well, how do we get there? The willingness to be last at least. Here's Jesus. This is another one of those great, I just hope you hear the humor in this. They came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he, being Jesus, asked them, what were you arguing about on the road? You know what, yeah. Well, what were you guys talking about back there? And it says, this is Mark, so he's giving you the inside of the story. But they kept quiet because on the way they were arguing about who was the greatest. So Jesus goes, hey, what you fellas talking about out there? Oh, nothing. No. You see? We already know that the myths are in play in our lives or our homes, our marriages, in our parenting, in the way we do things. Because if Jesus were just to kind of come out from anywhere and ask the question, we'd go, but we live our lives as if Jesus doesn't see half of what we do. Weren't they knuckleheads? I mean, they walked with Jesus, and he's walking right, and then they're not treating him like God, just like me. I walk with Jesus every day. I'm such a knucklehead. I don't think God sees how I drive. He thinks I'm driving according to whatever bumper stickers on the back of my car. The Highway Patrol is starting to keep statistics now, and they find out that the disease of road rage, it happens to people regardless of what's on their bumper sticker. Does that surprise us? It shouldn't. Jesus says, don't be surprised, be changed. Come to a place in your life where I set you free. So they were quiet. And then he said, again, sit down, fellows. Jesus called the 12 to him. If anyone wants to be the first, he must be the very last, or as the King James says, the least of all servants. Now, we can only do this if we're comfortable with who we are right now and the changes that God will bring. The least are sacrificial givers. They listen. They relate well. They don't have an agenda. They're highly respected. They get asked to serve. Their advice and their understanding is highly sought after. If, on the other hand, we are compelled to explain ourselves, get our rights, correct the record, gain attention and crave praise, make sure that our reputation is intact, it's going to be very difficult to be the last and the least. Right? This book I've been reading that's steaming up all these sermons, you can blame it on Gail Irwin, a book called The Jesus Style, writes this. In the game plan of Jesus, least is a choice you make when you have such a high view of others that you want to do all you can to elevate them. And your position ends up last because of your efforts for them. And you don't care. Because you see the good things that God does. You say, wow, that was cool. I thought I needed that little ego burst. I thought I needed that peace. And we don't. Well, here's where it really hurts for the church. There are people that want to prevail against you. They have any kind of motive for doing this. They want to wreck your business. They want to wreck your marriage. They want to be on a committee renting a free space in your brain and talk to you all day. And that's the world. It's out there. And when they lob one into the camp and it hasn't exploded, you know what we do? We pick it up and throw it back and hope it explodes in their camp. And Jesus says, don't take the ways of the world, even if they started it. You don't finish it. In fact, they didn't even start it. I am the sovereign God who starts and finishes all things. Would you trust me and lay it down and become my silent, invisible servant and trust that I'm doing something here that's not about the whole? Right now, it's just about you. It's just about you. God just wants to get a hold. You know why I've been assigned to 40 years of sermons? So that God might teach me something. Yeah, amen. Yeah, about time. Yeah. No, I got your sister show. Yeah. Thank you. So that's the deal, folks. Regardless of them starting or whatever it is. we become the real servants. And if we get a hold of this and say, wait a minute, this, I used to sit in the pews a little bit, and I wrote a lot of notes in my sermons for everyone else. Well, that'll work. That'll work with my junior high class. That'll, Gail could use a little of that. Right? Right? Too bad. Those were rough days. Right? Because God just wanted to get a hold of me. Get a hold of us. Say, when are we going to lay all that stuff down? Why do we keep coming back to that same thing and pushing against it again and again? Jesus says, come unto me if you are weary. I want you to serve with me. We're going to set people free. We're not going to worry about what they think. We're going to be okay. Jesus, I just pray as we prepare for just our last song.